The Joe Rogan Experience.
The place is incredible, and we will have Clint and Duncan on the podcast to explain all that. What's in that little silver?
Yeah, so this is so one of the things that we want to do with this program, again, is, first and foremost, it's to protect the UFC athlete, protect the rights of clean athletes, but we also want to influence other sports, influence anti-doping as a whole. So USADA came to us earlier this year and said, we've got some new technology. What do you guys think about using your program to be the first to kind of roll it out? And so the answer was, well, is the science good? Is it validated? They said, yeah, it is. I was actually at a conference midsummer back in New York and sat on a panel with Major League Baseball, PGA Tour, and the UFC, and a bunch of anti-doping scientists there, and they were talking about this technology. And the other leagues were asked, "Hey, you guys going to institute that?" And they're like, "Nah, I don't think enough's there." And they went to me. I'm like, "Absolutely. If USADA science tells me this works, we want to be the first, especially if it's more convenient and more efficient for our program." So what this is it's a leaching device, and until this came out, basically to get any blood tests from, oh shit, you got some scissors?
Yeah. Nice. I was ready for you.
Until this came out, basically any blood test done from our athlete had to be done with a phlebotomist, the full-on needle in the vein, take out a vial of blood. So with this leaching device, it's got 30 microneedles in it, the size of about an eyelash. You put it up on your arm, you hit this button, and painlessly the microneedles reach into just the capillaries, so just the blood at the top of the skin, and draw out a small amount of blood. And this light turns red when that blood's drawn out.
Whoa.
The blood is then deposited onto an index card. It's called dried blood spot testing. So a drop or two of blood on the four corners. The card's then sealed up, placed in the mail, and sent to a WADA laboratory.
Does this all have to be done on video so that?
No, well, you have it's not the athlete doing it themselves.
Okay,
you have a collector doing that. I mean, that could be the future where an athlete is doing it themselves.
Like on FaceTime or something?
Exactly. But here are the benefits of that. And this is huge for me. I want to make things as convenient for our athletes as possible. So, you talk to our roster and ask them, would you prefer big needle stuck in the vein of your arm and a vial of blood taken out versus a completely painless, leach of some blood from your capillaries? They're all going to say, obviously, this. You talk about cost. So blood taken out of a vein in your arm requires a phlebotomist. So in those cases where USADA is doing a blood test, they usually take a drug collection officer and a phlebotomist to take out the blood. I mean, that's a couple $100 there. A vial of blood needs to be cold shipped to the WADA laboratories. Here you're talking about dried blood on an index card that just needs to be sealed up. It becomes tamper-proof once it is, and put in the mail for 55 cents.
Wow.
So I think incredible efficiency, convenience to the athlete for our program. And again, we want to lead. And I think, when you talk about, I'm asked this question regularly about local or regional MMA shows saying, hey, this is great what you guys are doing for your program, but how much does this program cost you? And it is a multi-million-dollar program a year. And they say, hey, we'd love to do something like that, but we can't afford that. Something like this where now you cut your costs down from sending blood to, from maybe $1,000 to, maybe $100, this device and one DCL going to collect it out and put it on a card. I think it has some really great implications,
That's
not
amazing.
just for the UFC, but throughout the sport.
Can I see that thing?
Sure.
That's pretty badass. Wow. Incredible. Anything else? Should we wrap this up? We good?
Yeah, man. I think we're good. Unless
Listen, you guys
else.
are doing an amazing job. I mean, it's incredible, the results. It's so cool to see the results on the biological passport that you guys could show it in a chart, and it pretty much everyone agrees. I mean, it's really changed the nature of fighting. It really has. It changed the sport. It's almost eliminated doping.
Yeah, I really, as I told you, I really appreciate the platform you have here. Literally every fighter and camp and manager, on our roster watches this. So to be able to get in and talk about these things, talk about that new technology. We just used that actually. I think Rose Namajunas was the first fighter that you saw to try that out on. So I sent her a text going, hey, Rose, I heard they did the leaching device and the dried blood spot test. What'd you think? She said, awesome. didn't feel a thing. And she said, my mind is blown by how far technology's come here. And that's a big part of anti-doping and that deterrent when you're now saying, look at how the technology is evolving here. And you get an athlete that thinks, well, I think I can outwit them or out cat and mouse them. They see shit like this. They're going to think, and perception's almost as important as reality in a lot of these occasions. And they start seeing things like this, and that deterrent factor is built up, I think, higher and higher.
Yeah, it seems like at one point in time there was a race, and the dopers were just like one half step ahead. But now it seems like it's even, and with the possibility of freezing your sample and then looking towards it to the future, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I don't know if I call it even yet, but that gap
Close.
is definitely narrowing, and you're affecting the way that dopers are doping these days. I think now the microdosing I think is big, and it's difficult to catch microdosing, but you've altered the behavior of the doper from taking drugs really unabated to very small amounts, so the benefits aren't going to be as great. I think you got to consider that a win for anti-doping. I think that gap continues to narrow.
And when they microdose, like what is, like, say, would that be like testosterone or something like that?
Testosterone and EPO, probably the two most common, very
And how
fast
much of a window
clearing.
do you have of detection?
Matter of hours.
Hours.
But again, going back to I think I might have told this story last time I was on, but the Floyd Landis-Lance days, they were manipulating during the Tour de France an 8-hour window. So from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., they wouldn't test them during the tour. The thought was these guys are racing up the side of the mountain for 5-6 hours a day. We got to let these guys sleep. And they figured out, hey, if we do something at 10:01, by 6:01, the earliest a tester can come, it'd be clear. That prospect's always out there. That's why the UFC program, there's no limits on the tests now.
Right. It's just a bummer in terms of their sleep cycle.
It is. Yeah, it's brutal, but I think most appreciate that that's the price of, a clean sport and try to ensure.
Would there be a way to
safety.
change that? Like, would there be some sort of a wearable device that would detect changes in your body?
I've often thought that.
Yeah,
how about
like,
a wearable device that was
while you're
tamper-proof
sleeping?
that collected everything 24 hours a day, that you peel it off after a couple weeks and it's tested?
Yeah, or give them the wearable device so when they're sleeping, so you don't interrupt their sleep cycle.
Yeah.
So 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. or whatever it is that you decide would be the window that they need to sleep. While they're doing that, they must have this device on that detects any changes to their metabolism, any changes in input, and then they can't eat while they have this as well.
I mean, believe me, the anti-doping community is always thinking about things. I talked to Travis Tygart, the CEO of USADA, last week, and he made it clear that USADA, I think, dedicates $3 million a year grants toward research in anti-doping, things like that. So, I mean, that race is always going on and is always continuing.